I'm not really sure what I'd say for a promo like that.
You're hearing this on Saturday morning, you should jump on a plane right now.
That's it. If you are hearing us Saturday morning, August the 24th, 2019, you should make a beeline for Portland's Clinton Street Theater, where the Movies by Minutes convention is happening today at noon. Hurry! If you can't make the convention, stop by at night. See if you can catch a few hangers-on of the Movies by Minutes hosts and producers. We look forward to seeing everybody there later today. Let's begin. Welcome to Predator Minute, the podcast that breaks down the 1987 action sci-fi classic 1 minute at a time. 1 Mac minute at a time. I'm your host, John Zabriskie.
And I am Jeff Glover.
Jack Daniels.
I'm drinking for Mac tonight.
Jack Daniels.
Oh, Mac. 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 And today we're talking minute 53 of Predator. Minute 53 didn't have any good sports figures I really want to talk about, except one NFL player named Kevin Glover.
Oh.
Hey.
My uncle. No, I'm joking.
Who
is that?
That's all I know. his name and the number he wore.
If he plays football like me, he probably played one play and then was pulled for a concussion and never played again.
Carted off the field directly into the ground.
Yep.
And they played this song for him called Goodbye by Alan Silvestri.
He plays the flattened on the ground position. Oh, that's classic Glover style.
Hey, yo, take that, Kevin. Uncle Kevin. Kev.
Oh, Kev. You don't even know, you don't know anything team or position, nothing? Just that his name.
I couldn't be bothered.
Wow.
I was like, Kevin.
John. Well done.
Thanks. I can tell you this, he was not a Hall of Famer.
You've really stuck with this sports bit, haven't you?
Well, 53s just really dried up. I mean, Once you hit the 50s, people stop wearing those numbers unless you have to because you're a linebacker. Nobody else is really catching on to that.
Well, with that, should we jump in here? We have an all Mac minute. Oh,
it's an all Mac minute. I need. Let me open it up.
All right.
Minute 53 opens with. Minute 53 opens with Mac trudging away from Dutch and ends with Mac putting his flask on Blaine's body. Flask.
Mac. Yes, an all Mac minute. We have Mac this whole time. We're going to essentially see Mac grieving for Blain, fallen Blain, and his cooling corpse. Blain. And there's not a whole lot happening in this minute. We'll break it down still and talk about it, but it's mostly Mac just looking at Blain. Mac.
In a whole Mac minute. You all requested it, and we listened. Here it comes. Plus, the movie just is cut up like that anyway, so you didn't have a choice, did you? Yeah. So hopefully you like your Mac shout-outs. And you like the romance between Mac and Blain.
Buddy. See some badass bush before, man, but nothing like this.
I hear ya. This shit's something. Makes Cambodia look like Kansas.
Yeah, and we get different forms of Mac here. We get Mac with a hat. We get Mac with no hat. We get Mac drinking. From a flask.
Flask.
And I guess that's it. That's all the Mac we get. Mac.
Yeah, we see some Mac hand also.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
It doesn't flow as well.
He is once again at the beginning of the minute in the Mac ground.
From the Mac focus.
Oh man, I'm so sorry, everybody listening to this.
Oh, I just love Mac. We just love Mac. We heart Mac.
We do heart Mac.
If we ever saw this movie in a theater, you know what would happen. It would just be a lot of Mac, Mac.
We'd get kicked
Dylan,
out.
Dylan. And we're the only ones there. Oh, so awkward.
All right, so should I give a little official synopsis here?
Yeah, give us a synopsis about what happens in the first part, aka the only part of this
part. Yeah, first part, meaning the whole part here. Carrying over from last minute, we have this kind of high to low ground shot where Dutch is in the foreground and we see Mac in the background, the Mac ground, and Mac walks off. And we catch up with him a few paces later. He's kind of coming up over this boulder, and he takes off his hat, and we get hatless Mac, and bends down right next to Blain, pulls the tarp back, and we see Blaine's corpse here now, his neck all bloodied. We cut back to Mac's face. Mac drinks from his flask, closes the flask. I'm going to take a drink. Hang on.
Are you drinking from a flask? No, you're drinking from a glass.
A glass.
Are you drinking Jack?
No. Damn it. I should be. I didn't have any, though. The only whiskey I had in the house was Jameson. Okay. I knew I had to be drinking some sort of whiskey for this minute.
Of course.
Yeah.
Little taste of home.
Little taste of home.
Little taste of home. Some badass bush.
Badass bush.
He closes the flask, puts the flask and his hand on Blaine's chest, and that is the end of the minute. I did it.
Yay.
Yeah.
Lots of Macs and flasks to
really
wade through there.
This podcast is already 40 minutes long because of all the drops that we had to put in.
After a while, I just drop him in the background, and it's just kind of like echoing us. It's like Dutch is just echoing what we're saying, like he's the one copying us.
That's
how do you like that?
My favorite when it just happens quietly in the background.
My favorite is when I cut in like the actual audio, like the dialogue from a scene.
Yeah,
and then someone will say like, "Dylan, get them on the radio." And like when he says it, I also cut in him yelling Dylan from the handshake at the beginning. Right. So he's like, Dylan, better get someone on the radio.
Billy's on it. Pizzica Dylan. It's pretty sophisticated for a bunch of half-ass mountain boys.
Layers on layers of audio.
Yeah,
that's what you bring to this podcast, John.
Yeah, I have to bring something. I'll bring the drops, the layers.
All right. Well, there's, like I said, not a whole lot of narrative happening here, but there are a few things to talk about. So what should we dive into first? What do you think?
Well, I think the thing that stands out to me and probably a lot of other people when they see this close-up of Blain is his little eye twitches that happen around second 31, 32, where it's clearly just Jesse Ventura like laying incredibly still and just told, so don't move. Keep in mind, this is his first movie, so it's understandable, but I'm surprised they couldn't find a take where his eyes are not twitching. Or maybe that's the kind of thing that's really hard to see when you're running your dailies up.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly didn't notice that until you pointed it out. But
I feel like I've always noticed that watching this movie. Yeah.
When I look at it now, it becomes very obvious when I'm looking for it. But it is subtle. It's just a quick little, like his eyelids just shift a little bit. His eyes don't even open. His eyelids just kind of like twitch, like you said.
Yeah, they just twitch. Like if you're doing that thing where you're laying down, and what am I saying? If you're doing that thing where like you're like awake in the morning, but you don't want other people to know you're awake, your eyes are going to do that twitch thing.
Right.
Like don't bother me. I'm pretending to sleep.
Like what we do to our children every Saturday morning.
Yes.
Yeah. Go away. The cereal's on the lower shelf.
Right.
So get it yourself.
Exactly. But I just thought that was a fun little goof in such a serious moment here.
Right. There is another kind of little goof that you pointed out about Mac's hand.
Mac. Yeah, it's nothing big. It's when he first takes off the poncho from Blaine's face. It's still showing Blain in the foreground, Mac in the background. And then it cuts to an isometric shot of Blaine's face, and Mac's hand is now right on Blaine's neck or chest, whereas before it's on the poncho itself.
Yeah, it is. They do that quick cut from in front of Mac, and then kind of from his perspective. And yeah, all of a sudden his hand is on the neck. And unless they meant to have like a short jump in time there, that is just a little bit of a continuity goof, but nothing you would probably notice if you weren't looking for it.
Nothing you would notice if you're watching this just straight on through and not minute by minute. There's so many little things you pick up like this.
Now we get a kind of a musical cue here that we haven't had before, and it reminds me of like military horns, or what you would hear at a military funeral.
Yeah, this is the music piece written by Alan Silvestri called Goodbye. It's borrowing heavily from a well-known military tune called Fanfare for the Common Man, and I'll play those back to back.
He wrote that wasn't just I just assumed he like found a open source like military song or something. He actually wrote that piece?
He wrote that, and I mean it's as close to open source as you can without copywriting, because they used they used this song, Fanfare for the Common Man, which I'll play right now. Pause. Okay. As a temp track while they're cutting this scene, and so that they could cut it appropriately with the reverence and the military. I don't know, how would you say it? Like the military honorary way of going about this.
Yeah, like something you'd hear like at a military funeral where they, fire the rifles into the air, and then you get the horns and the, you get that image of like the flag being lowered onto the casket and stuff.
Flag.
Mac.
I think the music fits the minute. I do also kind of feel like it's a little cheesy, and maybe I'm nitpicking here a little bit. I know.
I have to disagree.
Really? You like it? Yeah.
I like it, yeah.
Okay, fine. We're no longer friends.
No! I mean, it's our halfway point I would argue that it's our halfway point of the movie, and like the stakes of someone dying in this movie are finally taken seriously.
Yeah.
With someone honoring his fallen friend and about to zip him back up. It's we'll save that for next minute when he throws the poncho back on his face. But
right.
I think it's just really meant to hit home and take a quiet moment between the action of the movie for you to reflect a little bit with Mac. On the gravity of being in the combat squad, that your squad mates are going to fall. They're going to not make it out sometimes. And in this case, his good friend, maybe his best friend, maybe just a really close working buddy, but I take it to be a really close friend, is not making it out.
Yeah, I'm watching back through the minute here. You're right. It gives a very specific mood to this scene that's fitting. I guess it just brings to mind like other films, maybe lesser films, where the violins come in, where they're trying to force a certain feeling on the audience. But I'll give credit here. It does work all right. I'll backtrack a little bit.
Backtrack, Mac. Oh, I guess going off of what we were talking about earlier about how it sounds really militaristic, like it's something that Alan Silvestri borrowed for the film, but instead wrote. Like I said, the Fanfare for the Common Man was the temp track, so he clearly used that for inspiration to write this song. So if you search up Fanfare for the Common Man, it's a few minutes longer. I feel like there's a lot more action in that song. There's a lot more going on in the Fanfare song versus Goodbye. It's pretty much straight through like a really quick military funeral, and it's really sad.
Yeah, it is.
Very sad.
Now, the other thing I was going to ask you about, because you are the king of researching around these parts, but I noticed the Flask. By the way, that Flask is really beat up. That Flask
what a perfectly
bush right there.
Badass bush.
It's badass bush.
Badass bush.
It's a perfect prop for right here. You're thinking, they've gone through some serious stuff together.
The flask itself has a scar. Did you notice that the right side of the flask has a scar?
Yeah. It's like that raised kind of scar when you you're burned or something like that.
But the flask has a insignia on the front, a little looks like a logo or a crest of some sort. I was going to ask you if you knew what that was.
Sure, yeah, I put this in the notes too, along with the real insignia. But this is the Special Forces insignia. You can just search up Special Forces insignia, and you'll see that it's what appears to be like one long scroll wrapping down, and it starts in the top left and wraps down and meets the other end back up top, and it says De Oppresso Liber, and we've talked about this long time ago. We're talking about minute 18. We've talked about this this Special Forces. I remember
that conversation. Yeah,
because the Special Forces they found were the bodies strung up of Hopper and his fellow Green Berets. Green Berets and Special Forces are interchangeable.
I knew these men. Green Berets out of Fort Bragg. Now what the hell were they doing here?
And they used this insignia with the arrows crossing in front of that scroll and a sword going straight up. And if you look at the flask here, in this minute, you'll notice they have the scroll, but the arrows and the sword have fallen off. And I take that to mean that it really has seen some action, this flask, to the degree where even the insignia is starting to crumble.
Get rubbed away a little bit.
Yeah. Or maybe you take that as some symbolism as they're losing some of their forces. They're losing some of their weapons.
Yeah. Yep. So the flask goes with Blain, we are to assume here. And really, that flask has seen some better days, so maybe it is time to retire it. But Mac does take a nice big little swig there from that before putting it down. So I will join you, Mac, having a little bit of whiskey.
And we talked about that before. About there's a good chance that's what they're drinking out of the flask. Sure. Back when they had their little exchange about a little taste of home and badass bush.
¿Qué pasa, amigo? Little taste of home.
And Cambodia.
Like Kansas.
Looking like Kansas.
This shit's something. Makes Cambodia look like Kansas.
All right. Well, thank you for enlightening me on the Special Forces insignia.
One difference in this script right here is that instead of a flask, it's a Zippo that Mac is putting in Blaine's shirt pocket, and that the lighter in the script has the insignia of the 101 or the 101st Airborne Division. I think that's Army Rangers. I don't remember. But that was one of our first guesses. I don't remember if it was you and I talking about what kind of forces Dutch and his troops were, or if it was Aaron and myself doing that deep dive into what they could have been. But in the script, they were 101 Airborne Division, but in this movie, clearly they're Special Forces.
I like the flask better. I think that was a good choice.
I like the flask better too. Plus, we talked about the Zippo connotations a long time ago about how the Zippos and in the jungle, there is a name for the squad for people who burn down the villages and burn down enemy encampments, and those are the Zippo squad. So I also enjoy the flask more.
Good call. Yeah, you don't want that on your resume.
No. Sorry, I interrupted. What were you going to say?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think I was just going to talk about the flask, how I like that better.
I think I only have one more thing, unless you have something else too.
No, I do not. It looks like here you checked out the commentary for this minute.
Yeah, John McTiernan continuing his commentary from the jungle mowdown scene. He mentions in the commentary now that he had a similar scene in Die Hard, his follow-up movie to this one, where the terrorists are all shooting the glass.
Shoot the glass.
And not hitting McClane at all.
Yeah, that's right.
And that was supposed to be, in his mind, at least reflecting all these years later, as John McTiernan, with the benefit of hindsight, he's saying that that's another example of one of those scenes where all the guns are blazing, but nobody's actually hitting anybody. And the point is to show the impotence of weapons, and that he goes on quite a bit with this with the commentary for this this couple minutes. He talks about how future movies, actually not his own, would borrow this sequence of firing lots and lots of weapons and all the bullets, with the one big difference being that there are usually people in the way and they're hitting people, killing people, the bad guys, instead of nothing.
We hit nothing.
And then he goes on and makes a really stretched connection between those kinds of scenes and like violent media and the Columbine shooting, wondering why people are so puzzled when these shootings occur with all the violent imagery.
No, Kiernan, come on. Stick to what you do, buddy.
Right.
Don't blame the movies and the video games. Oh boy.
But note, he's not blaming his own movie, right? Note that he's, although there's a very long scene or a very long sequence in this movie where they are just mowing down people with their weapons in the guerrilla camp.
I recently rewatched the 5th and final season of Breaking Bad. You've watched Breaking Bad, correct?
I have.
There's an episode, it's near the end, I won't spoil too much, where, well, I'm going to talk about it actually. So spoilers for Breaking Bad. If you haven't watched it, skip
spoil
ahead.
The crap out of it.
It's the episode is like third from the last, I think, with the big showdown between Hank and Walt and Jesse in the desert. And then all the crew, the neo-Nazi crew shows up with all their weapons. And there's like,
that's Ozymandias, I think is the name of that
exactly
episode.
Right. Yep. Yeah, and they just unload. All of those dudes unload their weapons, and they mostly hit nothing. Although they take out Gomez, but Walt and Jesse and Hank are all spared in that shootout. Although Hank ends up meeting his maker. Yeah. When I was watching that scene, I immediately thought of the iconic Predator scene when they're all firing their guns indiscriminately. Mm-hmm. Same idea.
Drop your weapons!
Yeah, that's like some of the more brutal, gut-wrenching TV you'll see is that episode, and I would say it's like an episode and a half where it ends with like the gunfight starting, and then the next episode starts and Gomez is clearly hit and dead. He's on the ground.
That's exactly what happened.
Right, Hank is wounded or whatever.
Man, Breaking Bad is so good.
So I remember watching that and several episodes in that show and thinking, this is amazing. I'll only watch this one time. There's no way I could watch this again.
I've watched the entire series twice, and I've watched the final season probably. I think this was my 4th rewatch of the final season.
Wow.
The way the last 4 or 5 episodes, the way they construct the story and the way all these different moving parts come together are incredible. It's an amazing piece of writing and storytelling. I don't know. I don't know if I've ever seen a show like it. It's so good.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so well put together. Like all the seasons
they're all good.
Just so well put together. I remember specifically like the airplane stuff that they would show at the beginning of season 2 or 3 or 4, and like you have no idea, and you slowly put that puzzle together over the course of the season, and it's just another heartbreaking sequence that you're learning about. You didn't even know that is soul crushing until it all comes together.
It's crazy. All the different flash forwards and flashbacks that they sprinkle in that end up paying off later. Mm-hmm. Love that show. All right, that's the end of Breaking Bad Minute.
Right, go see it. That is.
If you have never watched Breaking Bad, somehow, some way, do yourself a favor. Jesus, go watch one of the greatest shows ever made. It's on Netflix.
So do we have anything else for this minute? I am all done with my notes. It's a super quick minute.
I'm all done with my notes, which are your notes. So no, I think we've done this sequence justice. It's Mac taking a moment is really all that's happening here. Mac's taking a moment to remember his friend. That's what we got.
Yeah. So props to Bill Duke for bringing Mac such dimensionality and such emotion in what has to be one of the harder efforts given in this movie for acting, and especially acting without words and tone, and just simply bringing all the attitude, the the loss, the hurt in his face and his actions. Like one thing in particular that I didn't write down in my notes, but just stands out to me is when he takes off the poncho off Blaine's face. He just kind of whips it down after he pulls it up. He like pulls it up and just kind of whips it down. Like, this is my friend. I have a little bit of anger about this.
Yeah.
I don't know what that little flip is supposed to represent, but in my mind, it's him just showing a little bit of his anger and just a little bit of, I don't know.
Kind of like tearing off the Band-Aid a little bit. Like, he doesn't want to pull it back, but if he's going to do it, might as well just do it quickly and get it over with.
That's a good point. And he's the one who put him in his poncho and brought him up there.
Yeah.
If you remember when Dutch was giving orders, he told, Ponchito to do it. And then Mac says,
I got him.
So he's taking care of his buddy. He's wearing this burden of his fallen friend.
Yeah. He's going to carry that with him through the rest of his time in this film.
Yeah, for the rest of his life, probably.
Yeah, right. Yeah. The rest of his life.
It's a good chance.
Okay, well, good job, us.
Yeah, way to go, us.
Should we move on to our next segment here?
That's right. So we're going to talk recommends now. So if whatever you have in the pipe ready to go, Jeff, let the audience know. Let the world know.
All right, I'm going to recommend a film, a movie I watched recently that just became available on you can rent this on whatever streaming service you like to rent movies on, but it is a horror film, shocker, called Brightburn.
Is it shocker?
It is not the 1990 film, shocker. Maybe 89, I can't remember. It is Brightburn.
Brightburn.
Which would fall into the horror subgenre of killer kids. And so the story of in Brightburn is a pretty simple one. There is a family, rural family, lives on a farm. Well, it's not a family, it's just a couple. And the mother is Elizabeth Banks, who you might know from more comedic performances. And the father is, I can't remember his name, but he is Pam's ex-fiance in The Office.
Oh, Roy.
Yeah, he's Roy. Yeah. Anyway, the two of them, they live on this kind of rural piece of property. They're trying really, really hard to have a kid, and they can't get pregnant. And all of a sudden, one day, a meteor or something like a meteor flies down through the air and crashes into the woods behind their farm. And when they go out there to inspect it, there is a baby. And the story goes from there. They end up taking the baby in and raising him as their own child, which for the first 11 or 12 years or so of his life is perfectly normal. And then things change. And I will leave it at that because I don't want to spoil anything. But it was fun. It was, there's not a lot of explanation as to what's going on in the movie, where he came from and why he's doing what he's doing. But I kind of liked that. They just sort of left a lot to the imagination. And what surprised me the most was all the practical gore effects that we got out of it. I wasn't sure, sometimes you see these kind of more modern horror movies and it turns into a CGI splatterfest. And that was not the case here. We got some real actual practical effects that were pretty cool. So I always appreciate that.
Awesome.
Yeah. So check out Brightburn, available now.
Yeah. I think I know a little bit about that movie from reviews and previews, and I would say that if you like that movie Brightburn, I think you would really like the Amazon series The Boys that I recommended a few weeks back.
I've been meaning to check that out after you recommended it. Yeah,
but I'll leave it at that, so I'm not spoiling things. But I'll be recommending a certain workout, kind of appropriate for the movie choice. It's called the Murph. The Murph is, I wish I had done my research, but the Murph is named after, I believe, a Special Forces soldier whose last name was Murph, and it was his favorite workout. And I think he died in combat however many years ago, 10 or 15 years ago. Just all this is off the top of my head. But anyway, his favorite workout consisted of running a mile, doing 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, and 300 squats, and then running 1 more mile. So I saw some videos on this, and I thought it'd be fun to try the mini version where I just halved everything. So I did the half-mile run, the 50 pull-ups, 100 push-ups, and 150 squats, and then a half-mile run again.
50 pull-ups? I don't think I could do 5 pull-ups.
I mean, you do a little, as many as you can. You have to walk around a little bit, re-stretch, and then do them again. And my legs are still sore from the squatting, and I think that was 3 nights ago. Because I hadn't done squats in a long time. Though. Yeah, no, it's a great workout because you have your push and you have your pull, you have your cardio, and you have some good legs, good leg action. So try that out, folks.
All right. Well, I famously don't exercise.
I don't exercise.
I will do my best to exercise.
So yeah, if you want, try out the Murph. There you go.
Nice.
Or a mini Murph, like I did.
A mini Murph. I like that.
Mini Murph.
I would need the micro Murph. The nano Murph.
The nano Murph.
The nano Murph is you walk to the back door, fall down, do 1 sit up, walk to the couch, and open a beer.
The nano Murph. And that beer, I have to tell you, is what a reward.
Whoa, man.
You earned that.
You earned it at that point. Yeah. Treat yourself.
Treat yourself.
Treat yourself.
Treat yourself.
All right. So I guess my other recommend is go to Portland today, right now, after you hear this episode, and meet Jeff and myself and all sorts of other movies by minute hosts.
Nerds.
Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited.
Oh, it's going to be fun. It'll be a good time. Yeah. Portland's an awesome city, too. If you've never been, it really is cool. There's lots of cool stuff to do. Lots of weird, interesting people. And it's its own little subculture. So do check it out sometime.
We're going to have to talk about what we're going to listen to in the car because there's a lot of options.
Yeah. We can just watch The Predator on my phone.
Oh my gosh. That'd be amazing. Twice, really, right? Isn't it like...
Start it over.
Actually, I think we need to watch Predator 2.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
I've watched Predator frontwards and backwards. I'm not nearly as well versed on Predator 2.
Oh, love Predator 2. It's great.
Yeah. Okay, so listeners, if you want to contact the person who does our intro and outro music, you find Chaosware. That's Kaosware. We use his metal cover of the Predator theme with his permission. So thank you, Chaosware. And Jeff, where can people find you?
Oh, I am on Twitter, Carl_Hungus314. Come follow me there.
My name is Carl, ich bin expert.
On the Twitter.
My name is Carl, I'm expert.
I'm here to fix the cable.
Here to fix the cable. My dispatcher said there's something wrong with the cable.
Hello, meine Dispatcher says there's something wrong with deine Kabel.
Okay, so if you want to find out what other movies are covered in this format, the minute-by-minute breakdown, go to moviesbyminutes.com. If you want to email this show, predatorminute@gmail.com. We're on Twitter @PredatorMinute. And we're on Facebook with our own devoted listeners group, the Predator Minute Listeners Palapa. Target the center of that palapa. Target every part of that palapa.
I recently just posted gameplay footage of the new Predator video game that's going to be
Are you going to be playing that?
Well, I would have to buy a console that would support it for me to do it. But everyone else out there that owns a Xbox One or PS4 will probably be able to play it, or a PC.
Oh,
yeah! I don't
see the link right now.
Switch. Yeah,
awesome.
It looks cool. It looks like gameplay like of the original Predator movie. Like that seems to be the storyline.
Oh, awesome! I'll have to check that out. I'm really excited for Borderlands 3, a game coming out next month. I don't know if you ever played any of the Borderlands games.
I played a little of Borderlands 2. I didn't get into it, but I know it has a huge kind of cult following, and maybe not even cult following, just a huge following. People love that game, so that's cool.
Yeah, it's like I said, coming out next month. Super, super excited about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's it for Predator Minute. So I've been John Zabriskie.
And I am Jeff Glover.
And until next time,
stick around.
Stick around.
Mac.
Little taste of home.
Yeah, que pasa, amigo? Little taste of home.
Clink, clink, clink. All right. And cut.